When you hear the term motivational interviewing, you might be thinking, oh, this is about like hyping myself up or giving myself a pep talk before I answer questions. But that's actually not it at all. Like many therapeutic interventions and names, this one is just like wild, but it's super powerful. The idea behind motivational interviewing is about tapping into your own insight about what motivates you to change. When it comes to our money, it's about learning what are the reasons that I want to change my financial behaviors so I can achieve the financial goals and desires that matter to me. My name is Lindsay. I'm a licensed social worker, certified financial therapist, and founder of the financial wellness business, Mind Money Balance. I help companies and organizations enrich and enhance their financial literacy education by focusing on the emotional side of money. I have an old video. We all start somewhere. It is what it is, called The Trans-Theoretical Model of Change and What It Has to Do with Your Money, or something like that. And even though the lighting is terrible, I'm terrified of being in front of the camera, it continues to do really well because people are interested in how they can learn more about their unique motivations to make changes with their finances. So I thought it would be worth dusting it off, refreshing it, and giving you some information about this model, about this intervention, and learning how you can use it to impact your own change. So it's less about listening to some expert and following them, but going, okay, of the things this person is telling me, what are the things that I want? Why do I want to change? And how can I pick and choose the things that matter to me so that I can get to the other side of a new financial behavior that feels really good? Okay. First, we have to set the stage around where you're at in what is called a stage of change. There are 5 or 6 stages of change. And the reason that I say 5 or 6 is that I personally believe that there are 6 stages, but some people think there are 5 and then you start over. So let me just go through it. I'll name them and then I'll define them. So we have pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and then relapse. I don't love the term relapse, but we'll get there in a minute. The idea around pre-contemplation is that you are not interested in changing. You don't have an interest in identifying what your problem is. And in this instance, we're going to use money as the example. You don't have an interest in looking at it or acknowledging that it is a problem. It's the elephant in the room that you are really comfortable just hop, skip, and jumping right over. The next stage of change is contemplation. This is I'm thinking about it. I'm contemplating that thing, that elephant in the room is a problem and that maybe I'd like to change it, but I'm not really ready to create an action plan. I'm just acknowledging that elephant in the room might be a problem. I might want to change it. I might not, but at least I'm seeing it and I'm pointing to it and I'm acknowledging that it's there. The next stage of change is called preparation. This is exactly what it sounds like, where you're preparing to make a change. You're thinking about what life might be like if you made a change. Conversely, you're thinking about what life might be like if you didn't make a change, right? What are those 2 paths? Obviously, there are more than 2, but what are those 2 potential paths if you did make a change or if you didn't make a change? So you're really thinking through life with and without that change. While you're in that preparation stage, you might also be creating some outlines, some ideas, some goals around taking action. So you might have a plan of what you think you might do to start changing that behavior. Then you move into the next stage, which is action. This is where you're doing something differently with your behavior to hopefully change your behavior for the better to help you achieve your financial goal. Then you move into one of the final stages, which is maintenance or continuing. So it's no longer something that you really have to think about. It's that this financial behavior has now become a part of your lifestyle. It has become habitual. It's just something that you do. And the final stage of change, if we're imagining, kind of moving through these different stages, is once you've maintained it, there may be a chance that you relapse. I mentioned at the beginning that relapse isn't a term that feels really good to me. Often I find that when we use a term like relapse, we feel like we're starting over, we're going back to stage 1. And honestly, I think of relapses much more as hiccups, roadblocks, life happens, and less of you messed up, so you must return to the beginning of the starting line. Oftentimes, when we're in maintenance and we have a hiccup, which is what I'll call a relapse from here on out, and we have a hiccup, we're not going back to the beginning. We're often going back to maybe that preparation stage. We're back in stage 3 and we're going, okay, here's where or how or why this hiccup happened. Here are some things that I know now based on being in the action stage and the maintenance stage for a while. Here are ways that I can tweak why I do what I do and try again. But it is not about saying, oh, you messed up your budget, or oh, you messed up your spending plan, or oh, you messed up your retirement. Please go back to the beginning, because that's not how life works. By the time we get to the maintenance stage, we actually have learned so much about ourselves, and maybe some of the things that were in our initial plan of action don't work for us, or we thought they would work, but they don't fit into our lifestyle. So to me, to get to the hiccup stage is amazing, because it means you've moved through so many different stages of changing your behavior and thinking about changing your behavior. When it comes to motivational interviewing, which is kind of the key thing that is throughout these different stages of change, I mentioned at the top of this video that we are going to tune into our unique motivations or reasons that we want to change. And in order to get there, somebody else can ask us these questions, or we can ask these questions of ourselves. And so these questions sound less like black and white answers, yes and no answers. It's much more about how can we ask ourselves some open-ended questions that give us permission to explore, to be curious, to understand why we're doing what we're doing. And how can we, from that set of questions, start to get curious about the things in our current behavior that are working and the things in our current behavior that aren't working, and what might happen if we changed or didn't change them. Oftentimes, when we ask ourselves those really curious and compassionate questions, we can figure out our unique reason why we do or don't want to change. So these types of open-ended questions that you can do with somebody else, or you can ask of yourself, are things like, how might things be different if you changed? Or what are the things that you've tried in the past to change this behavior that didn't quite work out? Or what are some of the benefits that you learned of the last time you tried to make this change? The other way that we can ask questions about where we're at is literally using like a scale question to see how close or far we are from that particular thing. So for example, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being very ready, how ready are you to make change? And if you're kind of in the middle, you're at like a 6, you can ask yourself, why did I say I'm at a 6 and not a 4? What is putting me a little bit closer to being ready to change than not? Or if you're at the 6, it might be, what could I do to increase the odds of me moving to a 7 or an 8? And what we're doing there is we are getting these little nuggets of wisdom about what we do or don't want to do, and about the things that do or don't motivate us. As you know, I learn by examples and I learn by stories, so I'm going to share a case study of how this might look to implement motivational interviewing for some sort of financial behavior. In this case, we'll use a made-up person. We'll call them Kira. And Kira is the type of person who really believes in saving money and putting it away. And what has happened over time is that even though that behavior of saving money might be quote unquote good on the surface, or according to personal finance gurus, the other thing that's happening with Kira is that she's also not doing things like spending money on things that are important to her overall well-being. Things like pushing out doctor's appointments because she doesn't want to spend the $30 on a copay, or not getting the oil in her car changed because she doesn't want to spend the money on maintaining that vehicle. And this comes from a place for Kira where she feels like she doesn't deserve to spend money on herself, or that it's right to save money, or that it's good to save money. So in this instance with Kira, if I were working with her, I might start to tease out what is on the other other side of that. It might be, tell me a little bit about your fears around spending money on yourself. What are you worried that you would lose if you started to spend a little bit of money on the things that matter to you or on the things that help you to stay safe in life? I also might ask, what are some of the benefits that you've had of saving money, right? And she might be able to list out all these benefits. Well, the ability to not spend money on myself means that I paid off my credit card debt really quickly, or that I was able to save up for a house, or that I have a really healthy emergency fund. So I have all of these things that help me to feel secure. And then I might ask, okay, cool. So not spending money on yourself has done some really good things for you. What are some of the drawbacks of not giving yourself permission to spend money on yourself? And she might say, well, there are a lot. I didn't want to spend money on an oil change. And last winter, I live in the Midwest and I didn't want to switch out my regular tires for snow tires. And I actually ended up skidding off the road during a really icy day on the roads. Thankfully, I wasn't hurt. My car wasn't hurt, but it was a really powerful example of, I should have just spent the money on getting new tires. Or another example of things that aren't good about being this stringent about saving is that I feel like I've said no to almost all of my friends. The only activity that I engage with when it comes to my friends is like going for walks together. And I know that I'm missing out on going to dinner with them and going to the movies with them. And they go on an annual vacation and I've never gone. So I'm definitely missing out on like literal safety for myself. And I'm also missing out on some of those relationships and connections because I feel like I can't spend money. So that's an example of how I might learn from Kira what motivates her, what doesn't motivate her, what she likes about her current behavior of saving, and what she doesn't like about her current behavior of saving. And over time in working together, or if she asked herself those questions, she may find that for the very first action step, moving from contemplation of like, yeah, I think it is a problem to, okay, I'm getting ready to make a change. I'm in that planning phase. The next action step might be, I will practice spending money on things that will have a poor outcome if I don't spend money on them. So for example, if I put off going to my doctor's appointment because I don't want to spend $30, I might miss out on catching some sort of health condition and I might pay for it down the line. Or if I don't go to get my oil changed, there's a very good chance that my car engine might seize up and I might have to actually replace an engine instead of just spending the money to change the oil. So her very first plan of action would be to create some rules or guidelines for herself around what she's okay spending money on and testing the waters there. So getting into the maintenance stage, maybe she's okay with those things. And she comes back to me a little bit later and she's like, Lindsay, it's been so great. I've been able to go to the doctor. I actually went to the dentist while I was at it. And I also got my oil change, and that has been surprisingly good. And I learned that it's okay for me to spend money on myself in certain ways. And I'm still running into this issue of feeling like I can't spend money with my friends. And what I've learned is that I internalize this message that spending money on dining out or spending money on vacations is frivolous, or is for rich people, or is for people who aren't smart with their money. And I really want to learn how to push back on that. So you can kind of see with this example of how Kira has learned about her unique motivations, the things that matter to her, how she can move through the world in a different way. And like fast forwarding, let's say she's like rocking it at spending money to take care of herself, but she has a hiccup. Fast forward, it's open enrollment. It's like October, November. She's looking at her open enrollment, and as she's looking at it, she realized like, I've been paying $2, $3, $5 a month for vision coverage, and I actually haven't used it. I haven't gone to the optometrist in 6 years. I've been wearing the same pair of glasses. I think they're okay, but like I'm getting more headaches than usual. And I realized like, oh, I completely neglected to take care of that part of my health and that safe to spend experiment. So with Kira, we would say like, that's okay. It makes sense that you forgot to take advantage of a benefit that you were spending money on. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you can't go right at the start of the year or you can't schedule it right now, right? We would learn from all of the things that she's learned through this process, how to apply some of the things that worked, some of the things that didn't to make change. Cool? So that is motivational interviewing, or the trans-theoretical model of change. I hope giving you some examples of what it is, how it can be helpful. You can learn about the things that matter to you. You can learn about the things that are important to you so you can make financial change that actually is coming from your internal motivations. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.